A big UFC 270 fight week. And before we start off, I feel like to start the year, I've been starting every podcast interview off with something personal. So I'm going to get this out of the way very quickly. The first guest for this week's podcast is a guy who not only is one hell of a coach in the world of mixed martial arts, trains some of the very best across all promotions, especially in the UFC. That's why he's here to talk to us. But he's also a guy who I consider a friend, a mentor, and somebody who, Coach, I can tell you right now, Coach Eric Nicksick out of Extreme Couture, you truly, truly saved me and got me through some of the worst times during 2020, during the pandemic, and last year. I know we haven't talked on the podcast format, but as I welcome you back for the first time in a long time, you did a lot. So I just want to get that out there. I just want to say thank you, because I'm all about, being a little bit more open in 2022 and starting this podcast. So as much as I love everything you do in the fight game, I think people need to also give you credit for who you are as a person. And that's one of my favorite things about you.
I appreciate you, Mike. And I think that's something that, during that time, we all had to lean on each other quite a bit. And, I was happy to be a resource for not only yourself, but, I think just the leaning on one another and everybody in that regard helped everybody get through this bullshit,
Yeah, absolutely. And now I'll say on a lighter note, before we get into why you're here, with everything kind of coming back to normal in my personal life, I believe I'm going to be in town in Las Vegas, first time ever for UFC 272. That's going to be like 12 days before my 30th birthday. So you might hear from me.
Nice. Hell yeah.
But we are here on the eve, just a few days away from UFC 270, and a lot has been made of Francis Ngannou versus Ciryl Gane, and their storylines abound. And I know you've been asked this 100 times, and you're going to get asked this 500 times more up until Saturday night. What is it like for you? What is the process for you as a coach and friend to Francis to just weed it all out and say, listen, when we come in, because I know how coaches like yourself are. Leave your bullshit at the door. We're here to work. We're here to train. We're here to get better. We're here to become champions every single day. So when you have someone like Francis who has the belt, who has gone through so much bullshit, for lack of a better term, how do you kind of reel it all in and just say, this is what we're going to go do and this is what we're going to go focus on?
I think you have to kind of look at both sides of it, Mike. Like, is this something that can affect your fighter? Does it make it where, he's going to come in emotional? And if the answer to that is yes, then I think you have to spend a little bit more time in diffusing that stuff. But in this situation, the answer has been no. So I haven't really had to do a whole lot of making him refocus or anything like that. His focus has been on defending his title and hasn't really been on anything else. Now, I'm telling you that from what my vibe, what I get from him and what I've communicated with him back and forth, he might feel a certain way about it when he goes home at night. But man, I'll tell you what, from what I've seen from him is everything's been normal from the last 4 fights. It's been the same vibe, same feeling.
I want to backtrack to last year when he did win the belt, an incredible knockout performance of Stipe Miocic. And then it kind of seemed like everything was fast-tracked on the UFC side. I don't know all the ins and outs, and I'm not, some of the top reporters in the game. That's not what I do. But, it's well documented how everything came about, how Ciryl Gane got the interim title fight. But just going back to the night of Stipe Miocic, Coach, knowing you for the time that I have known you and knowing the story of Francis Ngannou, as we all do, what was that moment like for you?
I felt it. It's weird to say, Mike, I felt the energy of an entire continent, if that makes sense. Like the love from Cameroon, the love from Africa. I felt the energy from my own home, from my family, like the eruption of my wife and my kids and everybody. It was like, it's very hard to explain, man. And I think it was for me, very fulfilling. And it wasn't really much about the win. It was more of the ripple effect that it was going to have on everybody else. And I think what people maybe lose sight over is the fact that Francis gave so many people hope from his country, that if they can see a man that from their village or from their country or maybe from the same situation that they're in, that he's given these people hope that they can do it too. So that win just had such an effect, I think, on everybody around, not necessarily the belt itself, but the ripple effect that it had.
I can speak from my, personal experience watching that fight. I was with my uncle, and I usually go out for fights, but I chose to go to his house for it. And I was almost getting emotional. And he's like, "Dude, do you think Francis is getting emotional?" I was like, "Come on, look at this guy." You're like, "Oh yeah, knockout artist." Yeah, no. He definitely like, no, I'm not even getting emotional. Like, great, well, cool. But like behind the scenes, like, did you ever have that conversation? Like, did it ever like hit Francis all at once? Like everything that you just said, because I know how much it means to him to do that, for Cameroon and just everybody in his life. Did he ever show any side of emotion?
Oh yeah, for sure, and definitely behind closed doors. We had a great moment that I think that like I'll cherish as a coach. He came to the gym the day to pay me, and he come in the office, he closed the door, and he handed me a check, and like he kind of stood there, and I was like, "You want me to open this?" And he's like, "Yeah, open it." And I opened it, and I looked at the number, and I instantly started crying, and I was like, "Damn, man, like this changes my life." And he's like, "You changed my life, and you helped me achieve this, and I just want to be there for you, and you're my family, and vice versa." So we had like a little bit of like, a little bit of tears welling up and stuff. But and then what I loved, the next thing that he said was like, well, what's next? Like, we got more work to do. And I fucking love that mentality, bro. It's not like, all right, we made it. It's like, no, dude, we got a lot more work to do. So I loved every minute of that little time that we had in the office, and we were able to talk and kind of share a moment.
I do think the unfortunate side of after that is what everything that transpired following, with the UFC and Derek Lewis and the Ciryl Gane, and it felt like they were trying to rush Francis into, his first title defense. Meanwhile, we had Stipe and DC kind of hold up the top of the division for a couple of years, going through their trilogy. What was your stance on it all, and how were you guys going about it as a team in regards to Francis and his first title defense?
I mean, I didn't really take too much into it because they're a businessman, and they're a promotion that has to continue to run the business. So I understood everything that they did up until the point of making it an interim, because I felt like that should have been the Jairzinho and Francis situation. That should have been an interim. And I think there should be some more clarity when it comes to interims. And that was really the only thing I was like, that kind of sucks. But I didn't, I mean, I know my fighters feed off my energy, bro. So if I'm like, man, fuck this, fuck, I'm just pretty cool and mellow, and so is he. And I was like, well, that sucks. That wasn't cool that they did that, but it is what it is, and let's just use it for us to get better. And we had a lot of time because we actually started camp, because we signed to fight. I don't know if it's signed, but we agreed to fight Derek Lewis on September 25th. That was the plan. We already got to work. He got home in, I think, the end of June, and we started camp. And then week or two into it, they're like, oh, they're going to move on and do Ciryl and Derek in Houston. And then when you think of it from a business standpoint, the UFC booked that venue. I talked to Mick Maynard well before this was all booked out, and he was hoping to get Derek Lewis, and you have to have Derek Lewis on that card at the Toyota Center. So from a business perspective, I understood what went on, and I didn't have a problem with them making the matchup. I think that was the right matchup to make. I just think the problem was the fact that they put an interim on it.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Now, the one thing, and I have friends who watch the sport, and they're asking me everything about the entire situation regarding Francis, and a lot about the contract situation. The one thing I've said, and I kind of want to get your thoughts on it, is like, Francis may not be a guy who, like, let's say like the guy who's featured in the co-main event, a Brandon Moreno, where all the emotions come pouring out after a fight or anything. But we saw when he fought Alistair Overeem, and he said, "Where is the belt?" And we saw like Francis, like, it's not a guy that I would ever want to like piss off ever, or say, "Listen, you only have this, and we don't know if we have anything else for you after this. So this is all you have right now in front of you." Yeah. And that's pretty much the kind of situation we're coming into at UFC 270 in terms of the contract. And I don't necessarily, maybe it's what the UFC wants, because if everything goes according to plan for you and your team, then they have no choice but to bring him back. How do you kind of ignore that, even though it's a very serious matter at hand of, you don't know and I don't know, where their thoughts are on the future of Francis within the company, but that he can't be ignored with another stellar performance.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, honestly, Mike, like, this is a situation where I stay in my lane until it becomes in my lane. If this starts to affect the training, and it starts to affect him showing up on time and doing all the right things, And in that regard, then I have to step in as a coach. But it's not my lane. This is not. I don't deal with the management side of things. I trust in what they're doing and their goals and what they see his future is valued at. And I have to just sit back and allow that. Me on a personal level, I hope he gets it worked out with the UFC, man. I hope we stay in the UFC because I know where the competition's at. I know they're the best promotion in the world, and I want to compete against the best. So I would hate for him to have to leave, but they have to do what's right for him, and I trust in that process. So I mean, I trust in Francis. That's it. You know what I mean? Like I believe in him, and I believe in what he wants to do. So I got his back 110%.
And it's beautiful to see the belief that you guys all have together as a team. And just a few more here for you, Coach. With all that being said, the other side of it is that, let's see what's going on in the future, in the immediate future. I know there's a lot of calls for from Tyson Fury for Francis. Would you be heavily involved in that? And how do you think that would play out?
I'd be heavily involved in anything that he does or needs me for. That's the bottom line. But I'm sure if he's boxing, then it's going to be, Dewey's going to be running a lot of that, heading that up because that's Dewey's wheelhouse, man. Like he's a great coach all around. But he's definitely had world champion boxers. So I feel very comfortable with the team that we have around, especially if he goes to fight in boxing, because I know Coach Dewey and what he's capable of doing. So, man, whatever comes our way, we're prepared for. And yeah, man, it'd be dope to be able to fight Tyson Fury. That's for sure.
Yeah, you talk about getting an entire country behind you once again. That'd be an incredible matchup. Now, I'm not going to say Ciryl and Francis. I'm just going to say, as a coach, you've been in this game for so long, and I know that you've seen it all and been through it all. When you have what we have at UFC 270, which is the story of two teammates now turned rivals, and we'll see that later this year at UFC 272 as well. What is your main focus? Is it, listen, Francis is not the same guy and Cyryl's not the same guy, but I've learned everything about you, Francis, in our time together, and this is where we're going to go execute and perfect our craft in this fight from what I've seen against this new opponent that you have?
Yeah, I think he's the best resource of information that you're going to get because he's at least moved around with them. And I think not take the skill set aside. I think it's a vibe. I think it's a feeling. I think when you get in there with somebody, you kind of know. And when I talked to him about it, I was very confident and comfortable with the information that he was sharing with me. And, there's a reason why Francis is the champ. I'll tell you that. And I understand that he's the apex predator when he gets in there. So I've seen it, bro. I've seen that shit firsthand when we walked out to go fight Jairzinho, and these two guys are coming down Jairzinho's facing to walk out and Francis is coming down the walkway and they kind of lock eyes. And I looked at Jairzinho and that motherfucker was like, oh, I don't know what the hell I'm getting myself into right now. I seen that motherfucker break. Like before he walked in the cage, bro, it's something else when you get that dude locked in the cage and you got 4-ounce gloves on him and you're about to go fight. So I'll tell you what, I like where Francis's head out. I like his vibe. And, if he feels he's going to go knock this dude out, then I trust him.
Without obviously giving a coaching game plan here, what are some of the things that do stand out about Ciryl Gane to you?
His efficiency, that stands out to me a lot. I think that's the biggest thing for me is I think he's very good at setting rhythm and pace with his punches and strikes. He's not really overthrowing anything. He's never really overcommitting anything. He's not falling over his punches. He's not clumsy by any means. And I think the other thing that really stands out to me a lot is his ability not to get hit. Me being a football fan, I always remember like watching Barry Sanders. He never really got squared up. You never saw Barry Sanders getting fucking decleated, So I think he does that very well too. So for us, I think the X's and O's and trying to find ways to disrupt that has been the fun part.
Well, I'm going to end this on a fun note, Coach, and I want to appreciate your time. To credit everything I said about you to begin this, this interview, here you are on fight week. I know you've got a whole bunch of media obligations, and you squeezed me in, and I couldn't be more thankful for it. Want to let you know, earlier in the football season, I had about 5 texts written out to you early in the season when the Bears were in Vegas. And I was like, if I send one text, he's going to hold that all season, and he's just going to shit on me throughout the season. So I'm not going to say anything. So I do need to ask, though. I know things didn't end up well, and they didn't end well in Vegas there. But I don't know how tied you are to that Raiders franchise. But what do you want to see next? Would you like to see a new coach come into place? Would you like Derek Carr to stay there? What do you think about the Raiders going into next year?
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like the interim guy did a very good job of patching things together and making things work under the circumstances that they had. I'm pretty good friends with Solomon Thomas, so I talk to Solly probably maybe once a week. but it wasn't anything too much in detail, but more just me giving him credit of like, man, you guys have really held this shit together. You know, games that you guys weren't supposed to win, you know, they go out to Dallas and beat Dallas on Thanksgiving. So there was always like this back and forth and the win and in stuff. So when you think about the culture in the locker room and then these guys are digging out wins, I kind of like that when you talk about a coach, and he's not going to be a splash name. You know, he's not a guy that I think that maybe the fan base is going to love, but I think he's earned that respect as the coach. To be, at least you have to at least give him the opportunity to be the one that hire. You know, and I'll tell you what, something too, Mike, that really stands out to me when you know, being born and raised in Vegas and knowing that we're going to get an NFL team, it did scare me a little bit in understanding what the pitfalls of Vegas do bring. And, you know, I was hoping that these guys would come and they would give them a little bit of time to figure these things out, but in a mature way. And it's very unfortunate, the Henry Ruggs situation and the other cornerback that got a DUI. It just made me feel like, man, this is something that's Vegas is going to be maybe too big for some of these guys to come. So as a organization, I think they're really gonna have to do their due diligence in making sure they understand who and what they're drafting and who they're bringing in, because if there's somebody that has an issue at all, Vegas will fucking draw it out, bro. They're gonna pull it out real quick. So I think from an organizational standpoint, I like to see them maybe rebuild from the top. And I saw they got rid of Mike Mayock, and I think that's a good start.
Well, Coach, I want to end this on a like kind of heartwarming note, and that's, you know, I had an opportunity to talk to Taylor Gordado multiple times last year, and just following her journey, just her alone was amazing last year. And then you think about all the things that your team went through, and even leading into this fight. And when I think of Extreme Couture, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I know there's no egos in that gym. And if I can ask you, how would you sum up your team? Because from the outside looking in, I can only describe it as, it seems, and I don't know everyone and everything, but it seems like there's nothing but a family bond inside that gym.
You watch 300 much? Remember the movie
No.
300? So the movie 300 with the Spartans, and King Leonidas talks to the guy that on the hillside, the guy that's all deformed, and he asked him to hold up his shield, He had a great thrust with the spear, right? And he said, well, I want to see you hold up the shield. And the guy couldn't. He couldn't hold up the shield because of his deformity. And he says, I appreciate what you have over here, but we're only as good as the protection of one another from neck to thigh by protection of this shield. And we are one another protecting each teammate from neck to thigh with that shield. You know what I'm saying? So my analogy is like, dude, I don't look at myself. I look at the person next to me and the person to the right of me. And if I feel that way, if I exude that amongst my teammates and my coaches and everybody else around the gym, then that should be the standard and the premise that we all are there to take care of one another. And that's the vibe I get from the gym. We love one another, man. And like when we won Gym of the Year, the first person I thought of was Taylor and Chris Curtis, right? Casey O'Neill. People that maybe weren't on the radar last year, and people that lives changed over that year. You know, Cheyenne Velismus, these people that came out with nothing, and now they have something. They have some monetary value now. They have a little bit of money, but they're also making their career a lot better. I think that's what defines us as a team and as a coaching staff is, you know, we do care about not only the top level guys, but we also care about the young up and comers, because we want to get them to that same point too.
I don't want to say, you know, let's just not make sure that we don't take a year and a half to talk again on this podcast. That is absolutely something I'd love to have you back on. If I don't know you too much, you will hear from me before March, because I definitely need to know where I can stay, somewhere that's in between, where I don't get caught up in Vegas, but maybe close enough to the gym, because I would love to come check out the gym and everything that
if you're going to Vegas, bro, you got to live it up for 2 days. I'll get you all the IV companies.
I've never been, so I'm going to be asking you 1,000 questions, but the most important one is you know, when and how can I check out the gym and you know, just see everything that you guys have going on. You know, Coach, I really do think the world of you just as a coach and as a person, and really appreciate your time today. Wish you all the best, and can't wait to see what 2022 has in store for your team.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me on, Mike.